The battlefield was not quiet. Ships burned in every direction. Fire lit the endless black sky, and wreckage floated like broken bones of giants. Two mighty empires had clashed, and their fleets screamed with weapons that could split moons. Alien voices filled comms, commands, cries, and curses. The war had reached a point where even admirals no longer cared who lived or died. They only cared about survival. The fleets had been locked in combat for hours, each side desperate, each side losing more than they could afford. One empire's dreadnoughts fired massive beams, burning holes through the cruisers of their enemy, while the rival empire launched swarms of missiles, filling space with death. Shields cracked, engines failed, and soldiers knew that their homeworlds might never hear from them again. There was no honor, no glory, only destruction. Yet still they fought, because if they stopped, they would be the ones erased from the stars. In the middle of this chaos, silence crept in. It was not the silence of victory, nor the silence of defeat. It was something stranger. Sensors across both fleets began to scream. Strange signals, an object moving fast through the void, not from either empire, not part of any known fleet. It was a ship, a warship, entering the battle zone with calm, deliberate speed. The alien commanders snapped orders. They thought maybe it was a hidden weapon from their enemy. A final move to end the war, they ordered scans. They demanded identification codes, but none came. Instead, the unknown ship slowed and revealed its profile. Its design was unlike anything either empire had seen. Its hull was sharp, angular, but beautiful in a deadly way. Black steel with glowing white lines that pulsed like veins of fire. Its size alone made admirals choke on their words. The comms went quieter. Soldiers paused at their stations. Even wounded crew members stopped groaning. Everyone was waiting, because the battlefield had become haunted by a single question. Who were they? The first whisper came from a frightened pilot, his voice shaky. It's them. It has to be them. And across channels others repeated the same words, voices filled with disbelief and dread. Humans. The humans have come. For years the galaxy had known of Earth, a strange world that refused to join wars. A small planet that sent ambassadors to the council but spoke little. Many had mocked them, calling them backward. Weak or unworthy, Earth stayed silent. Earth stayed hidden, and so the galaxy laughed. But now the laughter was gone, replaced by the sound of silence. Because Earth had sent something no one expected. The warship glided forward, ignoring the wreckage, ignoring the weapons still firing in panic around it. Its engines did not roar. They hummed with a power that bent space in ripples. Shields covered it like a second skin, glowing faintly with an energy that alien science could not even name. It was not just a ship, it was a statement. Admirals froze. Their second-in-commands begged for orders. Should they fire? Should they retreat? Should they hail the vessel? But fear made them hesitate. They remembered the stories, old rumors of Terran experiments, of human fleets hidden in shadows, of weapons that no empire dared to test. Now, as they watched, those rumors became real. The war between the two empires slowed. Guns fell quiet, fighters drifted back toward carriers. Even missiles that had been fired earlier exploded against empty wreckage instead of striking their targets. The entire battlefield had become still. Millions of soldiers, thousands of ships, all waiting to see what this single human warship would do. Inside cockpits, alien pilots gripped controls so tightly their claws bled inside bridges. Commanders whispered prayers to gods they had not spoken to in decades. The silence was not peace, it was terror. The human warship kept moving, not rushing, not attacking. It simply drifted into the center of the battlefield, right where the two empires had slaughtered each other for hours. Its presence alone forced them to stop, and every second that passed stretched longer than a lifetime. From one empire's flagship, a desperate voice tried to break the silence. Identify yourselves. State your allegiance, but the human ship gave no reply. Its dark windows reflected only the light of burning wrecks, as if the ship itself was a ghost sent to judge them. The second empire's admiral shouted, "Prepare weapons! Destroy it before it destroys us," but his crew did not move. Their hands trembled. Their eyes locked on the giant vessel that seemed untouchable. No one wanted to be the first to test it. No one wanted to be the one who drew its wrath. The battlefield, once alive with chaos, became a graveyard of still ships and fearful hearts. Commanders tried to shout, but their voices shook. Soldiers waited, breathing shallow. No one dared speak above a whisper. And then the ship's lights changed, glowing brighter, pulsing with rhythm like a heartbeat. The battlefield, already tense, felt like it would shatter under the weight of the unknown. Everyone braced, some for death, some for salvation, but all knew one thing. The war they had been fighting no longer mattered, for the true power had arrived, and its name was humanity. The battlefield, once filled with fire and fury, now held its breath, and for the first time in centuries of war, silence ruled the stars. The silence did not fade quickly. It stretched across the stars like a shadow. Commanders shifted nervously on their bridges, their crews whispered. Even the dying clung to life just to see what would happen next. The battlefield that had once roared with explosions and screams now waited for one answer. Who were these humans and what would they do? From the First Empire's fleet, signals flickered. Officers sent out encrypted messages, asking their spies what they knew of Earth. But the replies were confused. Earth was supposed to be weak. Earth was supposed to be silent. They never joined wars. They never built ships beyond their small system. And yet here it was, a warship that dwarfed every dreadnought in the field. On the Second Empire's side, panic grew. One commander whispered to another, "It's a myth, it cannot be real." But deep down, he knew it was real because the scanners did not lie, the numbers did not lie. The human ship radiated power that could not be faked. The hull was forged of materials their science could not name. The shields twisted every scan that touched them. And the weapons, those weapons looked like they could erase suns. Across the battlefield, rumors spread faster than fire. Alien soldiers whispered, humans. The council laughed at them. But they were hiding this. Some believed Earth had been building in secret, waiting for the day to strike. Others believed Earth had made a pact with gods or machines beyond the galaxy. But one truth was shared. The humans were not weak. They were dangerous. The human ship still did not speak, still did not fire again, but its silence was louder than any cannon. It felt deliberate, as if the humans wanted every soldier, every admiral, every empire to feel the weight of their arrival. The battlefield that once belonged to two rival powers now belonged only to them. Inside one alien cruiser, a young pilot turned to his captain, his voice trembling. "Why are they here? We never fought them. We never touched their world." The captain had no answer. Because no one knew. On a different bridge, an old admiral leaned forward, his scales trembling, his mind flashing back to years of council meetings. He remembered the human ambassadors who sat in silence, listening, always listening, never joining arguments, never making threats, always watching. He remembered how the other species mocked them, told them they were irrelevant. Now he realized the truth. Silence had been their shield. Patience had been their weapon. The human warship slowed and stopped at the exact center of the battlefield. Broken ships drifted around it like offerings to a god. Both empires' fleets formed a wide circle, afraid to come closer, afraid to run, trapped by awe and fear. Then, for the first time, a sound came, not from weapons, not from engines, but from the ship's comms. A calm voice, deep and steady, filled every channel, every ear. "This is Terran Command." The words rolled through the fleets like thunder. Some soldiers gasped. Others dropped their weapons in shock. The humans had spoken. The message did not end there. The voice continued. "You have shed blood long enough. You have burned worlds and broken families. This war ends now." The aliens shivered, because the voice carried no anger, no mercy, only certainty, as if the humans were not asking but declaring. One admiral, desperate, shouted back, "You cannot tell us how to rule. You cannot interfere." But his voice shook, and his crew knew he was lying to himself, because in his heart he understood. The humans had not come to negotiate. They had come to end the game. Among the smaller ships, whispers grew louder. "Did you hear? They said Terran Command. They have a command. That means fleets. That means more ships like this." Fear spread like a virus. If one warship could silence two empires, what could a fleet do? What could 1,000 ships do? The alien soldiers who had been slaves to orders, who had killed without question, now began to doubt. If humans could appear from the shadows with such power, maybe their own leaders were not as strong as they claimed. Maybe rebellion was possible. The two empires tried to regain control. Orders flew across comms. "Do not fear them, prepare weapons. They cannot fight both of us," but no soldier moved. No pilot dared to fire. They had just seen a dreadnought vanish from one human shot. They would not be the next. The human ship's silence returned after the message, as if giving the empires a chance to think, to decide whether they wanted to live or be erased. The choice hung heavy. Every second stretched like eternity, one by one. Alien ships lowered their weapons, power systems dimmed. Fleets that had been enemies for centuries suddenly stood side by side in surrender, not to each other but to the humans, because they knew The battlefield no longer belonged to them. In distant systems, the live feeds of the battle spread. Oppressed races, broken colonies, and forgotten worlds all saw the human warship, all heard the voice of Terran command for the first time in centuries. They felt hope. Whispers turned into chants. The humans came. The humans came. On the bridge of the Terran ship, the human commander looked at the screens, his crew silent and ready. They had revealed themselves. They had broken the silence of centuries, and now the galaxy knew humanity was not weak. Humanity was not unprepared. Humanity was here, the battlefield, once painted with death, had become the stage of a new era. The empires trembled. Their soldiers fell silent. Their admirals stared in horror, and far beyond the wreckage, the galaxy itself seemed to pause because whispers of Earth had become reality, and nothing would ever be the same again. The war fleets floated in uneasy silence, their guns lowered but not forgotten. All eyes fixed on the massive shape that dominated the void. The human warship did not move fast, it did not need to. Every detail of its dark hull seemed designed to strike fear into the hearts of those who looked at it. The glowing white lines that ran across its body pulsed like veins carrying fire. Each pulse reminded the galaxy that this ship was alive with power far beyond their own. Scanners across the fleets tried to measure it, but the numbers made no sense. Its size was greater than a dreadnought, yet its movements were too smooth. Its shields bent sensors back, showing fragments of false data. Some readouts said the ship was kilometers long. Others claimed it was smaller, but all agreed on one truth. It was stronger than anything in the battle. Inside the command rooms of both empires, admirals leaned close to their holoscreens, their advisors stammered, "The ship! It should not exist." Some whispered that Earth must have discovered ancient technology. Others muttered that they had struck a deal with forces outside the galaxy. But none of them dared say the real thought in their hearts that humans had built this themselves, with their own hands, in silence and secrecy, while the rest of the galaxy underestimated them. The human warship turned slightly, revealing its full profile to the fleets. Its shadow fell across burning wreckage, and for a moment, it looked less like a vessel and more like a titan risen from myth. The glowing weapons along its sides remained cold, but their size alone was enough to freeze every heart. Turrets taller than towers rotated slowly. Missile bays large enough to swallow frigates opened and closed with calm precision. A whisper passed through the alien ranks. One shot, only one shot destroyed our strongest dreadnought. They remembered the blast. The way it erased a warship that had survived 100 battles, it did not explode. It did not burn. It simply vanished into dust. No weapon in the galaxy could do that. No weapon except the one mounted on the Terran ship. The rival admirals argued over channels. One screamed, "They cannot control us. We must fight." But the other hissed back, "Fight with what? Fight with broken fleets? Fight with ships that can be erased in seconds." Their fear grew into desperation. But still, they did not attack because no one wanted to be the Second Empire to lose everything. On the bridges of smaller ships, young pilots stared at the Titan, their claws trembling on controls, their minds screaming at them to run. But their engines stayed cold. One pilot whispered, "If this is just one ship, how many more do they have?" No one answered, because the thought alone made them sick. The warship's hull shifted slightly, panels sliding open to reveal more weapons hidden beneath. Weapons that glowed faintly with blue light. Weapons whose design no alien mind could understand. Some shaped like lances, others like vast cannons. One alien technician gasped as his scanner failed. "They are bending physics itself," he muttered, his voice empty. The human ship sent no new message. No threats, no warnings. It simply showed itself as if saying, "Look at what you mocked. Look at what you feared to believe." The galaxy had laughed at Earth, but the laughter had died, and in its place came awe. The silence across the battlefield grew heavy. So heavy it felt like the void itself was holding its breath. Admirals whispered orders for retreat, but no captain dared move their ship, because any sudden action might draw fire, and they all knew. One blast could erase them from far colonies. Millions watched the feed in disbelief. Oppressed aliens hiding in shadowed worlds whispered, "This is the Titan of Earth." The name spread like wildfire in a single night. The Terran warship was no longer just a vessel, it was legend. The empires that had fought for centuries now stood frozen, their soldiers realizing that their war meant nothing, that their fleets were toys compared to the Titan before them. Their entire balance of power shattered in moments inside the Terran vessel. The human crew worked in silence, their faces calm, their commander's voice steady as he gave quiet orders. No shouts, no panic, only discipline. The humans had waited for this day. They had prepared in shadows, and now they revealed the fruit of their patience. The alien admirals tried to regain control. One shouted into his comms, "Fire everything if we fall. Let us fall as warriors," but his crew refused. Their hands frozen, their eyes locked on the Titan. They would not commit suicide. They would not provoke the wrath of the humans. The Terran ship's lights pulsed again, brighter, casting long shadows across the wrecks. Every alien felt the same chill crawl through their bodies. They were no longer rulers of the stars, they were prey. Prey standing before a hunter that had hidden too long. In the silence, the truth became clear. The war was already over, not because one side had won, but because humanity had chosen to step in. The galaxy that thought itself vast and powerful had just met a force greater than all its empires combined. The Titan had been revealed, and from this day, nothing in the galaxy would remain the same. The battlefield remained frozen. No one dared move, no one dared speak too loudly. The alien fleet circled in silence as the human Titan floated calmly in the center, its weapons exposed, its lights pulsing like the heartbeat of a god. Every admiral wondered if the humans would simply watch or if they had come to pass judgment. Fear hung heavier than the wreckage around them. Inside the First Empire's flagship, the commander clenched his claws, sweat rolling down his scaled skin. He barked at his officers. "They will not fire." "They are only trying to frighten us," but his voice shook and his crew heard the lie. Deep in their hearts they knew the humans had not come to bluff. They had come to show power. On the Second Empire's bridge, an admiral whispered to herself, "Please let them leave. Let them pass without noticing us." But she knew it would not be so simple, because the humans had already spoken. They had already declared the war was over, and the galaxy knew their words were never empty. The Terran ship turned slightly. The massive cannons along its side aligned with mechanical grace, and for the first time the battlefield felt smaller, as if the very stars leaned away from the coming storm. One weapon hummed, a low sound that rattled across scanners and made every alien flinch. Then it happened. The first salvo. The human ship fired a single shot. It was not bright, it was not loud, it was silent and clean. A beam of light thinner than a finger stretched across the void and touched a super-destroyer from the First Empire. In less than a breath, the ship was gone. Not broken, not burning, simply erased, its place filled with drifting dust. Gasps filled the channels, screams erupted. "Impossible," shouted one admiral. "No weapon can do that." But the proof was before their eyes. A warship that had survived 20 battles, armed with the best shields and armor the galaxy could build, had vanished like it had never existed. One shot, one pulse of Terran fire, and it was nothing. The Second Empire's fleet broke into panic. Pilots shouted, "They will kill us all, run!" Run. But their commanders barked orders to stay. No one dared flee because fleeing might make them the next target. The humans had shown restraint. They had fired once not to destroy an empire, but to deliver a message on ships across both sides. Whispers spread like lightning. If one shot can erase a dreadnought, what will a volley do? No one wanted to imagine. The thought alone made their hearts weak. The human warship did not fire again. It waited, its lights glowing calmly. The silence after the blast was worse than the shot itself, because now every admiral, every soldier, knew the humans had the power to end them at will. In hidden corners of the battlefield, enslaved alien fighters whispered to each other. They struck for us. They struck to end the cruelty. Hope mixed with fear, because even as they trembled, they felt something stirring in their chests. Maybe the humans were not just conquerors. Maybe they were liberators. Back on the council worlds far away, live transmissions carried the moment across the galaxy. Leaders who once mocked Earth sat in silence, staring at the dust of the erased super-destroyer. One counselor whispered, "They never came to talk. They came to wait." And others finally understood that Earth's silence at the council had not been weakness. It had been patience. In the center of the battlefield, the human ship opened a second weapons bay, not firing, only showing. Rows of missiles glowed with blue energy. Drones launched and hovered like metallic hawks, their wings sharp, their bodies humming with power. The message was clear. The first salvo had only been a warning. An admiral from the First Empire collapsed into his chair, his eyes wide. "We cannot fight this even if we unite. We cannot fight this." And the others who heard him knew he spoke the truth. No weapon, no fleet, no alliance could stand against the Terran Titan. The human commander's voice cut through the silence once more. Steady and calm. This was a demonstration. Your war is over. Stand down or share the fate of the erased. There was no rage in his tone, no joy, only certainty, as if humanity was stating a fact of nature, like the rising of a star. For a moment no one moved. Then slowly, ships across both empires powered down their weapons. One by one, dreadnoughts, cruisers, and fighters dimmed their systems. They had seen the future, and they did not wish to be dust. The human warship did not celebrate. Its crew did not cheer. They simply watched, waiting to see if the galaxy understood the message. The silence stretched again, thicker, heavier, until the battlefield itself seemed to kneel before the Titan. In the hearts of millions watching, a truth burned brighter than any star. Humanity had not come to fight for territory. They had come to remind the galaxy of balance, to end endless wars with a power none could challenge. The first salvo had ended not just a battle but an era. The empires who thought themselves eternal now bent under the weight of a single Terran ship, and everyone who lived that day would tell the story for generations. The battlefield went silent again. Not from destruction this time, but from surrender, and above the broken fleets floated the Titan of Earth, patient, powerful, and unchallenged. The dust of the destroyed super-destroyer still drifted across the battlefield, its fragments glowing faintly as they scattered into the endless dark. Every eye was fixed on the Terran Titan, every mind locked in fear. The first shot had been enough. No one wanted to test if a second would follow. Silence clung to the fleets like a shroud. Then the human ship spoke again, its voice calm, steady, carrying across every channel, across every ship. "This is Terran Command." The words struck deeper than weapons because they were not a threat. They were a declaration. You will cease this war, or you will cease to exist. The voice was not loud. It did not shout, but it carried the weight of mountains, the certainty of storms. Admirals on both sides exchanged nervous looks. Some tried to argue, we cannot obey them, we are empires, not children. But their voices shook. Their crews did not respond. Soldiers who once obeyed without question now hesitated, their hands frozen, their eyes locked on the Titan that had erased a warship with one strike. The warning spread beyond the battlefield. Relays carried the human message to colonies, stations, even council worlds. Millions listened, billions whispered. The humans gave a warning. Never before had Earth's voice reached so far, and never before had it carried so much fear. On a small frigate, a young alien pilot whispered to her captain, "They do not sound angry," and the captain, an old veteran, nodded slowly. "No, they do not need to be angry, because they know what they can do." And in that moment the young pilot understood. Anger was for the weak, power was for the silent. The Terran warship pulsed again, its glowing veins of light growing brighter. Not firing, only reminding the fleets that it was alive, that it was watching. The drone circling its hull shimmered with blue energy, ready to strike at a single command. It did not need to repeat its words. The warning itself was enough. On the bridge of the First Empire's flagship, the admiral clutched his chest, his scales cold with sweat. He whispered to his advisors, "They cannot mean it. They will not destroy us all." But the silence of his crew told him otherwise. They believed the humans, they believed every word. The Second Empire's commander stared at the screens, her voice broken. "We mocked them for centuries, we mocked them, and now..." She trailed off, unable to finish because the truth was too heavy. Humanity had not been silent out of fear. They had been silent out of choice. The message of Terran Command spread through the galaxy. Oppressed worlds that had lived under the boots of empires now listened with wide eyes. Slaves in mines whispered the words. Rebels in hiding repeated them. Cease this war, or cease to exist for the first time in their lives. They believed freedom was possible, because someone strong enough had spoken for them. Back in the battlefield, no ship dared to fire. No captain dared to move without permission. The Terran ship had not asked for tribute, had not asked for surrender. It had asked only for peace, but peace backed by power so absolute that no one could refuse. An admiral tried to save face, broadcasting his own message. "You cannot control the galaxy with one ship," his voice trembling. "We will resist." But the laughter that should have followed never came. His words fell into the void, empty and powerless, because every soldier in his fleet knew the truth. One ship was enough. The human commander did not respond with anger. His voice returned calm as ever. "We are not here to rule you. We are not here to claim your worlds, but if you continue your cruelty, If you continue your endless wars, we will return, and next time, we will not give warnings." His words cut deeper than any blade, because they offered mercy but only once. The fleets wavered, torn between pride and survival. But pride could not shield them. Pride could not erase the memory of that one clean shot. So one by one, the ships powered down. Weapons went cold. Engines dimmed. Dreadnoughts that once carried the pride of empires now bowed before the Titan of Earth. Among the watching colonies, hope spread. Rebels shouted with joy. The humans warned them. Chains rattled in secret as prisoners whispered, "The humans will come, for the first time in centuries." The galaxy had a force that empires feared, a force that did not seek to conquer but to protect. Inside the Terran ship, the crew worked with quiet precision, their commander's eyes steady, his words few. They had waited for this moment. They had chosen it carefully. Humanity had stepped into the stars not as beggars, not as allies, but as a power that could not be denied. The admirals of the two empires stared at each other through their comm links. They hated each other. They had killed each other's people for generations, but now they both felt the same fear, the same helplessness, because in the shadow of the Titan, they were the same, small, broken, and weak. The warning hung over them like a sentence waiting to fall. The humans had spoken. The humans had shown their hand. The galaxy would never laugh at Earth again. They would never dismiss them again because in one battle, in one warning, humanity had changed the balance of the stars. The battlefield stayed silent, not from victory, not from defeat, but from awe. The age of endless wars had been broken by one voice. One ship, one warning, humanity's warning. The fleets obeyed in silence, weapons powered down. But deep inside many alien hearts' pride still burned. The warning of Terran command had shaken them. Yet whispers rose across the bridges of battleships. They cannot be unstoppable. No ship is invincible. Some admirals clenched their jaws, unwilling to believe that one warship could humble centuries of empires. They feared, yes, but fear can twist into anger, and anger can push a hand to do the unthinkable. On the edge of the battlefield, a desperate captain from the First Empire gave a command, his voice trembling but sharp. "Fire. Test their defenses." His crew hesitated, some shaking their heads, but fear of their admiral was still stronger than their fear of humanity. Weapons came alive, beams of plasma lanced out, missiles streaked across the void. The silence broke into sudden chaos. The shot struck the Terran Titan head-on, the battlefield lit with fire. Flashes brighter than suns, shockwaves rattled debris, and for a heartbeat the alien fleets believed. They believed maybe the human ship had limits. Maybe the humans were bluffing. Hope flickered in their eyes, but then the smoke cleared, and the Titan was untouched. Its shields glowed faintly, bending space like ripples across water. The alien weapons dissolved harmlessly against its defenses. Scanners screamed with nonsense readings that broke known physics, as if the Terran ship wore not just armor, but reality itself as protection. The admirals stared, mouths dry. Their pilots whispered in terror. "Nothing. Our strongest weapons did nothing." The proud captain who had ordered the attack fell silent, his crew staring at him with hollow eyes. They had fired first. They had tested the warning, and now they would pay. The Terran ship did not roar. It did not unleash a storm of cannons. Instead, small hatches opened across its hull, and out flew drones, dozens at first, then hundreds, sleek machines with glowing wings moving in perfect unison. They darted like predators freed from cages, their speed unmatched, their precision terrifying. The drones swarmed through the fleets, not striking randomly but with purpose. One slipped past a cruiser's defenses and cut its engines with a single blast. Another disabled the targeting systems of a destroyer. Others hacked into communications, spreading chaos. No ship destroyed, not yet. Only broken, silenced, and left adrift. The message was clear. The humans were showing restraint. They were proving that even their smallest weapons could dominate entire fleets. And still they held back their true firepower. It was not just victory, it was demonstration, a test of power meant for the whole galaxy to witness. Across the battlefield, alien soldiers shook in disbelief. Their commanders screamed for defense, but there was no defense. Missiles could not catch the drones. Lasers could not track them. Shields could not repel them. Ships fired wildly, but they hit only emptiness. Every attempt only deepened their despair. On one carrier, a pilot tried to ram a drone, hoping to sacrifice himself, but the machine spun away in a blink, reappearing behind him, slicing his engines, leaving him drifting powerless. The drone could have killed him, but it didn't, and that mercy was worse than death. Because it proved the humans controlled life and death at will. The Second Empire's admiral screamed at his officers, "Unite, attack together, overwhelm it." But his words rang hollow. Because unity meant nothing against a power that ignored physics. Every shot wasted only proved the futility. Every failed strike fed the legend of the Titan. In distant worlds, the feeds showed everything. Billions watched the Terran drones dismantle fleets without killing. Every planet whispered the same words. They are not conquerors. They are judges. The oppressed cheered. Chains rattled as slaves whispered. The humans will free us, while the rulers trembled. Their empires built on cruelty shaking on fragile foundations. The Terran drones returned to their warship, forming ranks like soldiers before a king. Their wings folded, their bodies glowing faintly as they docked once more. The Titan pulsed with light, calm, patient, waiting. The test was over, and humanity had proven their power. The voice returned, filling the void again, calm, measured, unstoppable. "You see now," the commander of Earth said. "Your weapons mean nothing, your fleets mean nothing. Your cruelty ends here." His words struck harder than any cannon, because they carried truth, and truth cannot be deflected. The admiral who had ordered the first strike collapsed into silence. His crew no longer looked at him with loyalty, but with hatred because he had doomed them, and spared only because the humans had chosen mercy. Mercy that cut deeper than vengeance. The rival empires no longer looked at each other as enemies. Their eyes were locked on the Titan. They realized their war was meaningless now. The true power of the galaxy was not in their fleets, not in their weapons, but in the silent world they had mocked for centuries. The battlefield drifted once more into silence, not from surrender alone, but from the crushing weight of realization. Humanity had revealed only a fraction of their strength, and that fraction had broken two empires in a single day. The test of power was complete, and the galaxy would never forget it. Across the galaxy, the feeds of the battle spread like fire. The image of the Terran Titan filled screens in markets, taverns, homes, and even in the dark mines where slaves toiled in silence. On forgotten colonies where children grew up under the lash of Empire soldiers, the words of Terran command echoed. "Your cruelty ends here." For many, it was the first time they had ever heard hope spoken aloud. On the battlefield itself, silence stretched heavy. The fleets of two great empires floated powerless, their weapons dimmed, their admirals broken, their crews hollow with fear. The humans had shown restraint, but restraint did not make the moment softer. It made it sharper, because every soldier realized the same thing. If the Terrans had wanted, none of them would be alive. Among the drifting wreckage, whispers began, soft at first, then louder. Alien captains murmured to their officers, "If they are here to stop the war, what else will they stop?" Enslaved crews who had been forced into battle looked at the human ship and saw something they had never known. A chance in the slave decks of a captured frigate. Workers who had been chained to machines for years stared at the screens that showed the Titan. One young alien girl whispered, "Maybe we are not forgotten." And others wept quietly, because for the first time in their lives they believed freedom might come. The Terran drones that had disabled ships returned to formation, their bodies glowing faintly, but the silence they left behind was filled with rebellion. On ships across the fleets, crews turned on their commanders, no longer willing to die for empires that could not protect them. Soldiers dropped their weapons, whispering to each other, "The humans will help us. The humans will end this." On a council world far away, leaders of smaller races gathered around the broadcast, their faces pale, some in awe, some in joy. One elder with trembling hands said, "The chains are breaking. Can you not hear them?" And indeed, across countless systems, chains were breaking, not by force but by courage. The courage that rose when the hopeless saw hope. The Terran commander's voice returned, calm, steady, the kind of voice that carried authority without needing to shout. "The age of cruelty is over," he said. "No empire will rule through fear again. We will not allow it." His words were like fire poured into frozen hearts, melting despair into strength. In the fleets, rebellion began in silence. One soldier turned his rifle on his admiral. Another powered down his engines and refused to move. Whole crews stood together and declared they would no longer fight. The empires that had once held them with chains of fear now saw those chains crumble. An admiral of the First Empire slammed his fist against his console, roaring, "Obey me, I am your master." But his own crew stared back with cold eyes, and one by one they turned their seats away from him, ignoring his commands. Their loyalty had been stolen by a single human warship, by a voice that promised more than fear. It promised justice. The Second Empire's admiral saw her fleet begin to fracture, soldiers shouting through comms. No more war, no more masters. Her voice cracked as she tried to command, but she knew it was over. Her empire had lost not to weapons, but to the breaking of chains. The battlefield that had once been filled with hatred between two powers was now filled with a new kind of silence. Not fear this time, but defiance. Ships once enemies began to signal each other, not with threats but with words of surrender, with words of hope. They no longer saw each other as rivals. They saw each other as survivors beneath the shadow of the Terran Titan. On distant planets, uprisings erupted like stars igniting. Slaves rose against overseers. Miners threw down tools and seized weapons. Whole cities filled with chants. Terran command. Terran command, the words became a song of freedom. Carried across air and across void inside the Terran vessel, the human crew watched the signals. Rebellions blooming in real time. The commander stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes steady. He knew this was the moment humanity had been waiting for, not just to show their power, but to use it to change the galaxy itself. The humans had not fired to conquer. They had fired to awaken, and now the galaxy stirred. The broken chains of millions rattled, and the sound was louder than any gun. The admirals of the two empires sat in silence. Defeated not by destruction, but by the collapse of their control, they could not rule through fear anymore, because a greater fear had appeared, and behind that fear was something even stronger: hope. The Terran commander spoke once more, his voice carrying across every channel. The chains you wore are broken, you are free. No master owns you now. Those words sank deep, deeper than any weapon, because they carried what the galaxy had forgotten for centuries: choice. On the battlefield, crews tore insignias from their uniforms. Slaves stepped forward from their stations and refused to return, and across the stars, people who had never dreamed of freedom whispered to each other. The humans broke our chains. The war had ended, not with surrender to one empire or the other, but with the arrival of humanity. And with humanity came something stronger than any weapon: the power to end cruelty. The chains were broken, and the galaxy would never wear them again. The battlefield drifted in silence. The wreckage of countless ships floated like ghosts. Yet none dared to speak until the human voice returned. The Terran commander's words carried not just to the fleets but across the galaxy. The war is over, he said, calm and certain. The age of cruelty ends today. The message was not for two empires alone. It was for every world watching. On the crippled bridges of both empires, admirals sat in disbelief, their faces pale, their voices gone. They had ruled through fear for centuries, but fear had turned against them. No soldier obeyed. No fleet moved without looking to the Titan first. The humans had not destroyed their ships, yet they had destroyed something greater: their power. The Terran Titan pulsed with light, steady, patient, waiting. It did not advance, it did not strike again, because it did not need to. The message was already written in the silence of millions. Humanity had arrived as more than conquerors. They had arrived as arbiters. Across the galaxy, oppressed worlds erupted. Slaves threw down chains. Rebels raised banners. Miners stormed overseers. Children shouted the name Terran Command in streets that had once been silent. Entire planets awoke as if from a long nightmare. The broken chains of the battlefield had spread like wildfire to every star. In the halls of the Galactic Council, leaders stared at screens in terror. They remembered how they mocked Earth, laughed at their silence, dismissed their voice. Now they understood that silence had been a weapon, and Earth had wielded it perfectly. One counselor whispered, "We laughed at them, and now they hold the galaxy." No one dared reply. On the battlefield, ships that had once faced each other as enemies now powered down side by side. No admiral dared issue commands. Crews looked not to their old flags but to the Terran Titan. The war they had fought for generations was gone. Erased in a single day, the human commander spoke again, his tone unshaken. "We did not come to rule you. We did not come to take your worlds, but know this: if you return to chains, if you return to cruelty, we will return as well, and we will not be merciful." The words were heavy, heavier than any weapon because they carried choice. Mercy now, judgment later. An admiral of the First Empire whispered bitterly, "They are not rulers, they are gods." But his crew did not argue, because in their hearts they felt the same. What else could erase fleets with a whisper? What else could break chains across worlds without firing more than one shot? On a faraway mining colony, where slaves had known nothing but pain, the moment became legend. Overseers fled as the oppressed rose, chanting, "The age of cruelty ends today." Mothers held their children and told them, "Remember this day." The day the humans came, the Second Empire's admiral finally bowed his head, whispering to his crew, "It is over. We have lost." But one young officer corrected him. "No, not lost. Freed." The word stunned him because for the first time, he realized that maybe the Terrans had not humiliated them. Maybe they had saved them from themselves. The battlefield became a graveyard of silence and awe. The Terran Titan turned slowly, its drones folding into place. Its weapons dimming, its engines humming low. It had no need to linger. The message was carved into the stars themselves. As the ship prepared to leave, its voice came one final time. "We are humanity, we are Terran command, and we will watch." The words echoed long after the transmission ended, echoing in the hearts of billions. In the days that followed, news of the battle spread. Empires trembled, rebellions grew. The name of Earth became more than a name, it became a promise. Oppressed species swore allegiance not out of fear but out of hope. Rulers who thrived on cruelty hid in their palaces, knowing the eyes of humanity were upon them. The galaxy had been ruled by cruelty for centuries. Now it was held by something greater, the certainty that humanity would not allow cruelty to stand. Terran Command had not asked for obedience. They had asked for change, and the galaxy listened. The admirals who once dreamed of conquest now dreamed only of survival. The soldiers who once killed without mercy now prayed that the humans would never return in anger, because they knew the truth. Humanity did not need an empire. Humanity did not need endless fleets. They only needed the will to act, and that will was enough to shake the stars. As the Terran warship vanished into hyperspace, the silence of the battlefield lingered, but it was no longer the silence of fear. It was the silence of awe, of reverence, of a galaxy realizing it had been given a second chance. From that day forward, no one forgot. The moment when the battlefield went silent, the moment when chains broke, the moment when a single Terran warship changed the fate of the galaxy, and every child born after would grow up hearing the same words. Whispered like sacred truth, humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again.